Hi, and welcome to our virtual conversation with Katie Tunstall, Sophie Kennedy Clark, and Amanda Zemke as we celebrate the release of their short film, GUTTERPUNKS. In case anybody hasn't seen GUTTERPUNKS yet, it has been released on Katie Tunstall's YouTube page. We've included a link on the stream on the live chat. And then if you can't remember that, go back to her stream. And then it's also on our website, futureoffilmisfemale.com. My name is Karen Coleman. I'm the founder of The Future of Film is Female. We are an organization that amplifies the work of all women filmmakers through our short film fund, our commitment to exhibition, and our promotional programming. And I have to say that being able to host virtual conversations like this during the past, seems like 100 years, has really been a lifeline and a joy. And so I want to thank everybody for attending this conversation today, and if you've ever done a conversation in the past. And at this point, I'd like to invite our filmmakers to join me, KT, Sophie, and Amanda. Hi. Hi. I want to thank you all for being here too. I think we're spread all over the world, which we were saying is nice because that's not something that we necessarily could do previously. And so it's wonderful. So also want to say congratulations on GUTTERPUNKS getting released today. Yay. Yay. So the film was written and directed by Luke Arnold. And I would love to start off by each of you telling me how you got involved with the project and the roles that you kind of took on with this film. KT, do you want to start?
Sure. So I really met Sophie and Luke socially. Like, we were hanging out and having a great time, and friends, other film friends knew Luke, and he's just this polymath. He writes, he is a great actor himself, and just a ball of energy in terms of creating stuff. And I mean, any guy who wants to come to the table with a beautiful script about female empowerment and relationships in a sensitive and realistic way, I'm always going to be excited by that. It's a really important voice within what you guys are doing, is to have male writers and male filmmakers be allies in this whole deal. And but at the same time, it was just such a beautiful, there's a lot of really difficult subjects in this film. And I think that he just has, and Sophie as well as a producer, I think they've really treaded that path in a great way, where they've managed to make a really joyful, light feeling film, but it's really covering some heavy stuff, I think.
Yeah. So
I was really excited about getting involved.
Absolutely. And I think it's really nice too. You know, I have a list of films of, like, when men get it right. like 20th Century Women, like a man got it right.
Yeah.
You know, like those kinds of projects are projects that I do think need to be celebrated.
Yeah, as women, we're so bored of, you're either a prostitute or you're crazy or you're completely virginal. You know, there's been such a lack of the spectrum of just being a normal human being that happens to have a vagina. You know, it's like you don't have to fit into these trite, just very simplistic versions of what we are. And so I think it really, in a very beautiful, almost lighthearted way, kind of managed to do that, which I think was really cool. And Sophie, I love you. And you just did such a beautiful job with that character, because it's challenging what she does to the little girl's heart. But I think to be left, I think my opinion is any villain, you should still love them. If it's a good villain, you still totally love them, and you understand, you have some understanding. And you're not really a villain anyway.
No, I remember, when Luke was writing it and we were discussing, a lot of it, I remember him using the word kind of characters having like payoffs, so that, even though she does something quite villainous, what she gives back is also there as well, you know, and it's just like Katie said, it's not just about like just demonizing someone. It's, you know, I think he really made the characters so well-rounded that you couldn't just box them. And I think that's the whole thing about not wanting to be boxed, you know? And I think the sort of explorative nature of like how it's, you know, wearing what you want and putting that across sometimes when you don't feel like you have a voice, you know? And for how young women, that can just be a way of representing themselves. And I thought that was very cool.
Yeah. And I want to get back to something similar to what you've mentioned, but Amanda, how did you get involved as the editor?
I knew Luke I worked on Black Sails where he was, so I knew him always as Long John Silver.
That's a great way to know somebody.
Yeah, and he, you know, I just always thought of him as this just incredible actor, and he would come in after filming and he loved to watch the show through. And I'd be the one to screen it for him. So we got to know each other. And then when he approached me with this film, I was like, of course, I'm going to help Long John Silver do anything. And then when I read it, I was blown away. And he said that he wrote it. And I was just really, really impressed because like you guys said, it does have so much emotion and the characters have such amazing arcs and told and just packed into just a tiny little story. So I was thrilled to take part of this because sometimes you say yes to certain things and, you know, it's just a lot of your time and doesn't really turn out great. But this was something I can be really proud of to be a part of.
Absolutely. You know, I watch a lot of short films. I love a lot of short films. And my joke is always like, if it's anything over 12 minutes, I'm like, this has to be really good to justify like its length. And I was saying earlier to Amanda that this is 15 minutes, but it doesn't, it goes, everything is just so perfectly paced and the storyline, and there's so much going on in it. And, you know, back to what you were saying, Katie, it's like, this beautiful film that's full of like grief, these like beautiful sad moments in life, and this like searching for yourself and independence and unlikely communities. And so I did want to know sort of like, what were your favorite moments in the short where those situations unfolded?
Do you want to go first, Sophie?
She doesn't.
Maybe so I don't have to follow your genius answer.
I've been talking about it all morning, so I've been getting practice in.
I don't know. I think there was a big thing, like you know, when Luke was writing it, that there was a couple of things that I've always sort of said anyway, that then became very much a part of like the character as well, which was like, you do you, babe, which was just the whole thing of just do you, do you know what I mean? And I think that is just something that, you know, I've always been a big champion of. And, you know, it's very difficult sometimes being an artist and trying, you know, especially when you're constantly changing character and trying to kind of stick to your own truth. And that's something that I took away from it that I really, really loved.
Yeah.
I mean, without doubt, I think one of the best lines I've ever heard in a film, full stop, is in this short film, where the dad says, you know, it's hard raising a little girl, and you say, try being one.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful line. I actually really like the line before that too, where he says, what did they do? You know, do your parents know you've run away? And he says, what did they do? And you say, what? To have me. And it's so enlightening of your state of mind, of how much you're struggling, that you know that part of this is your fault. You're not like just blaming other people. You're kind of, there's a responsibility. But one thing I noticed today, which I have never noticed about the film before, which is obviously completely deliberate, but I just missed it, was there's a scene at the beginning where after Anastasia has thrown a rock at the troll, she lowers a little bag of sweeties and it says, sorry. And then I totally didn't join the dots that the cassette tape that the troll leaves for Anastasia then also says sorry on it. And these two like completely different apologies, one one where she knowingly tried to hurt the troll by throwing a rock and she knows she's done something wrong. And then the second sorry is a really complex sorry, an apology, where she had to hurt the girl to follow her own truth. She didn't have any choice. She had to do it. And it's only because of that moment, it's really the pivotal moment where, you know, the dad and the girl forgive one another, they forgive her. There's just this breakthrough, and she realizes, yeah, I can, if I can get through this friend hurting me, I can get through finding out who I am and going out and being myself with my friends. It's like a very, I totally missed the two sorries. It was very clever.
I did too. I was like, what is it? Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a break to just let everybody know who's watching. If they want to ask any questions, they can do it on the chat and we'll pull some at the end. I always forget to say that and don't want to be left hanging. But Sophie, speaking of your character, I saw her to be, even though she was the troll, like I saw her to be kind of this like Mary Poppins figure who really comes in and changes this girl's life. Like what do you make of her?
Can we call you Mangy Poppins?
I've heard worse.
Yeah.
Oh
Should we retitle this? Should this get retitled?
I think the sort of joke was when you know, Luke was writing it, and I was very much, you know, we were around each other a lot when he was writing it, so we were constantly in conversation about it. And like one of the whole things was, you know, I at this point had never played with a Scottish accent once in anything in my entire career, because like, so I don't know, I think then the joke was that I should be a troll. It's like that sort of fairy tale-esque. It's silly. Like there's only one person who's asked me and he was like, is that a bit offensive? And I was like, but like, put me the crazy jacket and dye my hair. Like I'm not just going on looking like this. No, sorry, what was the question?
Like what basically I'm asking, what did you make of your character? Because she is very complex, you know, like what did you think a lot about, like where does she go next? Like what happens? Where is her, who is she?
You know, I think there is that thing. I had quite a lot of you know, obviously I'm not exactly the same as the character, but you know, I pushed the boundaries a lot in my late teens, like, you know, whether it was piercing my nose or dyeing my hair blue or like wearing crazy things, like you know, it was always something that I was sort of doing. And I, you know, I moved to New York and then to London very young. I constantly was someone who, sort of not in the same way, but felt sort of like I was on the run, you know, you're constantly trying to discover something. Yeah. And, you know, we kind of had it in our heads that if she's from potentially a family that doesn't really understand her, or like, you know, pop culture isn't around in the way she wants, you know, I kind of imagine her just pitching up in London with not really much of a plan. But around that time, you know, there were a lot of squats. There was a lot of, like, I'm pretty sure she would have found her people, at least I'd like to think so, pretty quickly. I mean, Camden probably would have been first stop if I'd had to harbour a guess. But, you know, I think that it was kind of interesting because, you know, I got on so well with Sasha, who plays Anastasia, and then, you know, and so we could have these funny little conversations and things, and it was just the realization that, you know, it was almost too good and you can't tame a wild thing, and that is kind of how the troll is represented, you know.
Yeah.
And but yeah, you know, there was a lot of myself in the character, and you know, with the help of Luke's writing and putting it all together, it was a pretty natural kind of creative process.
So Sasha's amazing in this as Anastasia. She's just,
it was her first thing. She's so good.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. She has the face, and I don't mean that. I mean, it's all there. It's really incredible. How early on in this process did you guys start hanging out?
Well, we did like we did try and do some auditions, but I think because the character is quite young, it was important to know that y- you know, they would have someone who either kind of knew the film world or something like that, you know. And actually it was Alex, your partner Katie, who sort of put Sasha forward for it. And it's just all, she's just so natural, like her little face, just everything, you know. I think it was really interesting watching Luke try and speak to her about, because it was her first job, it was like, if you think it, it will show. And that was just something that I was like, fuck, I'm learning. I've been doing
She did an amazing job. I mean, I've watched that film so many times now, and I still just get so much pleasure out of watching her really showing kind of realization and remorse and sorrow. And it's just, it really, she does such a great job of communicating those feelings, not, you know, without being totally over the top about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's just three characters there, and they carry the weight of these family storylines in such an amazing, in that light way, you know, where they don't have a lot of other people or signs to rely on, and yet you know what the struggle is independently and with each other. And yeah, she was just the first like second, and then at the end when she's all punked out, I'm like, this little girl's going places.
The thing I found amazing about the film too was that, like, maybe this is, you know, Amanda, this is a project. If you had like loads of stuff left over, I want to see spin-offs of all of these characters. Like, you could literally be, you're drawn in enough that you want to know what's happened to each one of them.
Well, one of our questions in the audience is, will there be a second part? So maybe. No.
No.
That'd be amazing, Sophie. You've like
The London
moved to
years.
London and become a chartered accountant.
Exactly. Oh my God.
But Amanda, I would love to also personally say I'm so in awe of editing. I just find it incredible because as a musician, if I'm mixing a record, I'm well aware that a mix process can completely change your record. But editing is this even more profound process where you have to kind of try and understand what on earth a director wants from you when they're not necessarily always making sense, probably. But I think it's just such an amazing skill, and you did such a good job because so much of it's being told without words as well.
Yeah, it really is kind of an invisible art that you don't really realize how much kind of thought goes behind every little edit. But to me, this project came together so easily, mainly because of the talented writing and the talented acting. I mean, Sophie, like we said, she is so natural and just amazing, and you just look at her for 3 seconds on screen and you can just feel that angst and you know where she's coming from, and she just brings it, and it's very like a tangible feeling, just by looking at her. And the little girl Anastasia, yeah, she's adorable. I mean, when she crouches to get the rock and her knees are all wobbly and she's kicking her feet on the toilet, like these are such little girl moments that we were trying to just capture into, like, to get that reality into the picture. But the most fun thing was just really trying to hit all the character arcs, because there's so much growth that happens in this film. And even the dad, who's not even that much, like it was a conscious thing Luke said to me once, that he didn't want the dad to really see the girl until the end. So he's very dismissive throughout. I mean, obviously he's dealing with his own things too with the mom. And so he doesn't really see the girl, and he starts to see her when the troll comes into her life and she's got all that the sprinkles on her face. But it's really not until the end, when he looks at her and he sees how hurt she is, that he actually gets down to her level and it really sees her. And then you just know that relationship is repaired and they're gonna make it. Everyone's gonna be okay. So it was fun to try and just get all, there's a lot of emotion packed in 15 minutes. It's amazing.
I love that shot that he's below her.
Yeah.
That he kneels down and finally she's kind of visually more important, you know, she's higher up than him. It's really powerful. The other shot I love is the one where they're sitting next to each other by the river fishing. And it's that wide shot. First of all, a beautifully composed shot. You know, it looks like the poster of the film. But also, I just think it's so lovely that it's this young girl who has lost her mum, who's not communicating with her dad, who feels quite friendless. She's basically leaving childhood because of her circumstances. And then you have this young woman who is entering adulthood, and they're just at the, they're both kind of on the cusp of moving into these different phases, but they found this place in the middle where they just love being kids together. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yes.
I think also Luke Mabley, who plays Nigel, the dad, I think, because it is such a sort of strong female movie, it's like, the grief that he's going through, because he is basically having to do up his wife's dream, which they were going to do together, and now it's sort of like this weird homage, and having to do that, also having to look after a little girl, like, we really didn't want it to look like he was sort of like the big bad man in it. Like, he's pretty broken as well at this point. And, it's something that I remember when I was growing up being like, mom, Fiona, yes? Like, getting a working parent's attention can be really difficult, and then seeing her own little kind of mad way after speaking to the troll of going and covering her face in whatever she could find in her crafts box.
I love having a box of glitter. I like sequin things. I'm like, that is something every little girl should totally have.
That's one of my favorite shots. The glitter is very good.
It's a magical shot of the film, that sprinkle. Yeah.
But I do think the dad brings like the gravity of the film home, because he does have the weight of his world on his shoulders. And even if he is not like paying attention to her, he's not being like a jerk. He's just coping and dealing as a person would in this experience. And I think that moment you were talking about where she could see that she's upset and he gets down on her level is such like as a parent, I'm like, that's the moment where you connect and you see it, and it's beautiful. But Katie, you just mentioned something about the music adding to it, and there is such a specific visual aesthetic to this film. And when films like this work, it's when they're married great with music. And so you wrote a song for this, and I would love for you to talk about like what's the difference because I know you've written songs for films before, like what's the difference when you write a film for a song than say versus an album or a different sort of individual project? What goes?
The biggest difference is that you're part of a collaborative team. You're not writing for yourself. You're expressing your own understanding of the project, but you're expressing the project, you're expressing the characters, or the director. You're working for a director, so that's a huge difference compared to being a solo artist and just being the captain of your own ship. You're working for Long John Silver. So you have to do what the guy wants, and so it's really fun actually being part of a collaborative team, because it can be a little bit lonely and it is a lot of pressure when you're doing your own stuff. So there's a lot of enjoyment actually in that collaboration and in working as a team. But what Luke asked for with this, which I really loved, is, sorry, is that really noisy? Is there lots of background noise?
It sounds like you're in a spaceship.
Yes, I'm in a spaceship. Sorry.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I loved that he was interested in a song that wasn't necessarily for kids, And what I really love about the punk aspect of this is that, you know, what's appropriate for children, and I love that the troll swears. It's real life. All parents swear in front of their kids now and then, especially when there's really deep and important and difficult stuff going on. That's real life. And so, you know, Luke just said, go for it. Don't think about just making a song for kids. Think about making a song about breaking out and being yourself, full stop, and see what happens. And so I just basically wanted to do a kind of hybrid between the Lemonheads and the Ramones, dressing, you know,
Achieved.
writing a song as if they were all one little girl.
I like imagining like Evan Danto and Joey Ramone as
Exactly.
little girls. Like,
I know this is maybe a dodgy area for conversation. We should
no, but
Dando. Anyway, yes, punk music, but just you know, I didn't sing the song perfectly. I shouted a lot of it, and what I've noticed with kids as well is they love songs that are quite aggressive. They love songs that they can. And it was so funny when Frozen came out and Let It Go just became this massive, you know, phenomenon amongst children. And whenever I was seeing kids singing that song, they were just like my niece. I got a video of my niece and she's singing like, you know, Frank Black from the Pixies. She's just going, let it go, anyway. And she's like singing like a punk. And it's this wish to just scream.
yeah,
Always pent up frustration as a kid, no matter how great or how hard your life is. And so I wanted a song that really was just like, go, express, like, don't hold back.
yeah. One of the things that you said about working as a team, which we were talking to Amanda about before we went live, about the editing process, is that you edited it with everybody sort of in different parts of the world, and pre-COVID, so before anybody was used to that. And so what was that process like? Did you just...
It was fun for me because they actually had already done all the shooting. So it was literally, I got a drive in the mail from Luke and it was like, bonjour, here's your film. And the part that took the longest was actually I had to, you know, transcode it and sync all the sound and stuff. But once that was in, it was easy. And then, yeah, I think me and Luke went back and forth a little bit, sending things. And then he was able to, because he was in Australia, Sophie's in London. And then he was able to come into my house, which was cool, and hang out. And Sophie actually came over too, which was awesome. So we were far apart, but then we actually intersected too at random times too. It was a very, very cool process.
Nice. I'm sure it's nice to have a bit of that space and then sort of like the togetherness at the end. Yeah. I'm waiting for that to happen in life now.
I remember very quickly that, you know, Luke is Amanda's biggest fan, and it was so immediate that it was like, well, you know, we would love a female editor, you know, because obviously, you know, so much of the storytelling, you know, not just happens from the script, you know, it's so much what happens in the room, all these little moments and the order they go in, and he made a complete beeline and was praying for your availability.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was fun for me. I mean, it's always a challenge because I was working at the time, so I was, you know, and I had small children too, so I was staying up really late. Like felt like I was cramming for exams, but it was it's so addicting and so fun that, you know, hours just pass and you don't even feel like you're working. So it was a pleasure to put it together. Yeah.
I have a question for Sophie. So I am privy to the fact that they had to do what's called some pickup shots, which is when you have to do shots after you're finished because you haven't got a couple of shots that you need. How hard was it matching your hair color?
Oh, yes. So basically there was this one thing we just didn't get it in Anastasia's house on the day, and we had to do it. so the one shot is where the troll just decides to wake up in the middle of the night and leave. And we watched it, and that was like the one thing that was missing. And we happened to be in Los Angeles, so Luke and I, between each other, had to find a studio somewhere in Los Angeles, totally fake. And obviously, you know, it was a different lens. It was, I mean, it. I think it was spray paint.
Was it?
Yeah. Probably my idea as well. I'm like, sure, that'll do. But yeah, that's, God, I completely forgot about that.
I mean, that's the thing that always blows my mind, that when you've made such an effort to craft how something looks, and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, we're missing. And this happens all the time on like huge features as well, where, you know, I think, wasn't it like Superwoman where Gal Gadot was she pregnant?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, not on this one. Like on the I can't remember. So there was some huge movie where the star was like pregnant by the time they had to do these pickup shots. And you know, you've got to like recreate this enormous situation and try and have it seamlessly, like, you know, go from one scene to another. And it's done brilliantly. Like you don't notice at all.
It is, but you know, in that sense, it's so funny you asked that, because it is just like we were just sort of like in Los Angeles, and it was like, that is just the one thing that we need. We have to figure out a way to do this, like using hair chalk or like trying to match the color, whatever. But then it was like finding like a studio to do almost like
bed,
like a film school, like a 1 day, like a, you know, 1 day shoot sort of thing. It was, that's when you really have to get your kind of creative juices, and the problem solving element of filmmaking really comes into play.
Well, you did a great job. I would not have been able to tell that was a pickup shot. Your hair, seamless.
Shot of the movie too, because your range of emotions went from you know, happy reminiscing of this time together to, should I leave? Should I go? I got to be true to myself. What am I going to do? There's so much meaning in that one like 3-second shot that you guys picked up. It was really, really cool how important it was.
Yeah. I think also there's just something kind of, one of the other things I've just found really funny, it's not funny, but it could be funny, I don't know, is that it's when the dad is there, and he's like, you know, you can tell that there's some, it's weird. His daughter has literally brought back someone who is technically homeless to the house, and is like, Dad, we're having a sleepover with like a 19-year-old girl. Like, it's an uncomfortable situation for a father who then is like, are you old enough to drink? Which is when they sit and have the heart to heart. And I think it's even like, you know, she's lying on the couch and she's like, what am I doing here? Like, this was not part of my plan of getting to London, you know? Like, so it was that little moment was really important, just to have someone lying there going, I need to make a decision, and I need to sort of leave in the dead of night.
Yeah. Are you guys ready for some audience questions, virtual audience questions? Okay. Brian asks, how do you feel knowing that your amazing film is inspiring not just for girls, but for everyone? The message and lessons and teachable moments really apply. Congratulations. It's for everyone.
Hi, Brian.
I just think it's so important that this film, even as a short film, I think is just a really powerful like puzzle piece in how we support projects that really allow female characters to expand and be more interesting and be more real and not be good or bad, or, you know, these kind of old, very black and white sort of portrayals. That it's, even as a short film, I think it's so impactful, allowing for nuance in female characters. I love it.
And I think too, you know, I have a son, and, you know, I feel like whenever I come across anything that is, like a stereotype for girls. It's as important for me to point that out to him than if I had a daughter, because that's the kind of behavior he has to rally against that everyone's telling him he should. So I think it's important for these kind of films to exist so that, non-women men can look and have these experiences normalized and represented for them as well. I think it's so important, and I think it's really exciting that that this was written and directed by a man. I had someone kind of challenge me on that yesterday, and we show a lot of films that are written and directed by women, but everybody else below the line is men. And so you have to champion the people who are also having women editors, women producers, costume designers, second ADs. Like these roles are super important. That's my long-winded sort of butting into that question, but I think that this film does that. I mean, I think that when she says like, try being a little girl, it hits home for us, but it might cause someone else to be like, well, what is that like? What is it like
I
to be a
think
little
what's really nice about it too is that it does make a point quite subtly about the difference between powerful beauty and aesthetic expectations of beauty, where someone might watch it and think that the troll is scruffy and unkempt and probably stinks, whatever, covered in mud, dirty fingernails. She's not looking the way that she's looking for someone else to find her attractive. She's being herself, and that's what Anastasia does by the end as well. It's very much about, and that pink hair conversation, do what you do, it's about you feeling good. It's not about making someone else happy, about you looking pretty.
Yeah, I think that just in itself as a statement is just something that you sort of hope that everyone would feel like empowered enough to be able to kind of carry that through, and hopefully that really came across in the film.
We have another question that says they would love to know more about the mother's background, especially the part when we hear in the tape, "No, Anna, sit down." Do you all know how much the mother character was fleshed out, or was she intentionally vague?
Yeah, I mean, no, we actually spent to do just with the set decoration, really tried to make a character, and we cast someone to be her, and we had a whole day out with her and Anna and Luke Mabley, who played the father. Everything from designing the logo was very much meant to be her. She's that kind of rockabilly, strong, powerful, but loves that kind of kitsch element to things. And she was, I think within the tape, because she's very poorly, I think you have a little girl who's kind of clambering all over you in a hospital bed, and you're attached to all kinds of grips and things like that. And I think that's what that line was meant to put across. And I know with a bit of sound design and the beeping and stuff, that was meant to be across in the tape. But
so the background is that the mother has passed away at this point, and she's I think Luke's backstory, which wasn't explicit, was that she had cancer, and that I remember in an earlier version of the film that the hospital bleeping and the machine bleeping was a bit more prevalent and it was a bit more obvious, but he felt that actually it didn't need explaining that much.
Yeah, it was kept very subtle, and just another tribute to how well the story was crafted, that you can make those own conclusions from not being spoon-fed or told what happened, but you can you're led to figure it out on your own. And I think that scene of the kind of the montage where the first day the troll's working, and they're kind of happy and she sees the money, like we had that as a happy moment with music playing at the beginning, and then it was someone idea along the way to add more voiceover and more story during that moment, and it was just brilliant, because that's kind of the time that you can hear the mom and the girl interact together and kind of can now get a sense that, oh, she was there with the mom listening to these stories, and the girl's like, no, I don't want to be alone. Like, why does the little girl have to be alone? And like, there's so much told from just really subtly. It's brilliant. Anyways.
On that note, someone wants to ask you, Katie, well, it was so cool to hear you voice the mother. Could you share a bit? When I say the mother, I feel like it's like a psycho kind of thing, the mother. Could you share a bit about what you had in mind as far as accenting her voice?
Well, I think first of all, I wanted to get away from it sounding like me, because I was on I was on the end of the film singing in the soundtrack, and people are kind of familiar with me as a singer. And so I mean, that's what's really wonderful about doing. I mean, it's really interesting that Sophie was saying, I had no idea that you've never done anything in actually using Scottish before. That's incredible. But there is a really lovely disconnect from trying to kind of put too much of yourself in something when you're using a different accent. And I certainly, as a very inexperienced voiceover actress, found it really easy to just to get my mind into being that character. And just it was less distracting, I think, not having, oh, I think I recognize that voice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were an English family. They're living in London, so or north of London, wherever they are. So it kind of it just made sense to have her as a character sounding different from me.
I found this question. There's a lot of writing on the stream, but there's one question I thought was really interesting, and perhaps this will be the one that we end on. But it's about the bridge, which I do think is really an interesting part of the whole film. But it says the use of the bridge element was aimed at making the transition between fear and courage, curiosity and liberation. That's the question. She says, it's Vivian, I saw it literally as a bridge of transformation, maturity, and understanding. And it was interesting because when she approaches the bridge, listening to her mom's tape and talking about getting to the other side, I definitely saw it as like the mom's transition from one world to another and having to be alone. But I don't know if you guys want to talk about the meaning of that bridge.
I think this is what Luke tied together so brilliantly in so many different ways. Is it went, trying, putting together the story of the Billy Goat's Gruff, which it was just a fairy tale that the mother's reading, and then also, these two women at different times in their life, and obviously a bridge being over both of them and getting above it, and he married all of that together kind of amazingly. It's his writing's so clever in that way, just that it did manage to have lots of different meanings for probably lots of different people that see it, all under the sort of magical guise of a fairy tale.
Yeah,
it's nice that it's not just this thing that you cross, but that the troll it's the protection. It's sitting under it, it's hiding under it, they meet under it, they have their conversations under it. It's sanctuary, as well as this kind of transitional symbol.
well, congratulations, all of you. I mean, this short is just truly wonderful, and I don't know where it goes next, but it's on YouTube right now, and everybody can watch it. Again, the link is on the stream, and it's on KT's YouTube and on our website. And I don't know if there's anything left that you all want to say, but I hope that you do well in these remaining months of a pandemic. And I look forward to seeing what you're all doing next.
Well,
thank you so much. What a pleasure to be part of it. It's so nice to have a bit of a celebration despite the situation we're in. It's really nice to have everyone here and talk to everybody. And I would just really encourage everyone to watch it more than once. Yes. You get so much out of it by watching it a few times over, and it goes deeper every time.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, thank you so much again. Congratulations, and Happy New Year.